What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Friday, NIO did have a pretty solid day, going up 8.09%, largely because of the European kind of expansion news, which is relatively positive. So despite the tariffs, I know a lot of people kind of kept saying, hey, the tariffs are going to be the end-all be-all for Europe. Turns out not so much. So again, that's kind of a positive thing. And plus, even technically with the tariffs that are in force currently, the 𝗪𝗪𝗧, it's minimal, I think, overall. So I think 𝗪𝗪𝗧 is going to do fairly well in Europe. Looking forward into this upcoming week, though, we have a couple of big data points. So FDI, so that is just the foreign investment forecast right now is negative 13%. And I think that most likely is going to be that growing trend that does kind of occur and continue to occur over the next little bit. So something just to keep in mind, but I don't really see that being that impactful to Chinese stocks. You have the loan rate, 1 year and 5 year, that is on Tuesday, and that is for the most part it. There isn't any planned like stimulus kind of committee meetings, nothing like that. So it is going to be more of a technical driven week. Aside from that, though, these are the companies unveiling the earnings. Similarly, not really that big of movers. So again, it is going to be more of a technical driven week. There most likely will be some ES8 updates as well this week. And it seems as though that the market does react very positively to these new updates. So I think that's kind of a good thing in my opinion. So dependent on when that comes out, probably in the later part of the week, that is where you could see NIO start to move higher. When it comes down to Friday and Thursday, I think that also one attributing factor why NIO did move higher is because of the technicals. So it does keep bouncing off of this $4.49 range. So that pivot point has been diamond support, because if it does fail to hold, then of course you can kind of see the next support level being 379. I'm looking at the 1 day chart on a side note. So this has been that line in the sand that luckily enough has held up like a champ. So as long as it does continue to hold, you could see a continue to push higher. Going into this upcoming week, though, on a side note, you do have shorts somewhat very active. So 12.33% of the free float is being shorted. That does work out to be 190.24 million shares overall being shorted. Shorts are still making up for a good roughly around 40% of the overall volume, especially last week. So shorts are very much ingrained in NIO. So hopefully once they do kind of continue towards profitability, that will be just a natural deterrent. A little bit premature to, I guess, talk on that, but still, even just to put it in comparison, shorts did increase 640,000 shares net. So they are very, very active, even on this teal line, back and forth all over the place. So they definitely do move the stock price, as it kind of does match exactly with this. Aside from that, looking at the options, so with it closing exactly at that 481, that does mean that the 450 strike prices and below are in the money. So you do have right over here 23,000 at that 450, 28,000 at that 4, and then smaller amounts between that 250 and 350. Potentially you could see a nice little bump up in theory on Monday, but what has been happening, at least over the last couple occurrences of this, is market makers clearly do not want NIO to move higher. So they don't actually directly cover it on Monday anymore. They've been doing it more on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And you can always tell when it is a market maker covering based on the dollar value. So and most of the time, on a side note, it is done on the dark pool. So there was one abnormal transaction on Friday. So 1.59 million, 330,000 shares. So most likely that was one market maker, but clearly not enough to cover them all. So most likely anticipate Tuesday, Wednesday for the rest of that to be covered. But looking forward into this upcoming week, you do have 10,000 at that 450, 19,000 at that 5. So not really crazy walls or anything like that, which is kind of a positive. Does mean that shorts won't try to manipulate it below a lot of these key points. So that's kind of a good thing. Means that NIO could really move higher. Looking at the bull action on Friday, though, you do see consensus for it to be above that $5 range. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 450. So where we did close, it's kind of level ground. So we'll have to wait and see how that does play out. refer back to what I mentioned, that 449. Next strong target / resistance is going to be that 519. So if this pivot point can hold, at least in the first couple trading days of the week, then in theory, I do feel like there will be a little bit higher highs coming for NIO. But again, do your own due diligence and all the other fun jazz. But overall, though, you have been starting to see more and more institutional transactions. And that is something that I very much like to see, because when I started to first cover NIO, you'd see maybe around 3 or 4 at best on the dark pool. Now you're seeing all of these transactions. So a lot of big money is looking at NIO. That I'd much rather prefer. So let me know your viewpoint on that in the comments below. But aside from all that, there hasn't been any new analyst ratings, no real articles kind of talking about NIO or anything. So it has just been the technicals and just various operational updates. On the actual chart though, it did close above that ALMA, so it does show signs that it wants to move higher. Aside from that, it's already above all the key moving averages. Stochastic RSI going into this upcoming week, it is considered very oversold, so a good piece of news, or let's say a ES8 update, then potentially you could see a new rush of buying coming in. So yeah, let me know your general thoughts on that. But like I said, I do feel like there is definitely a lot more higher highs coming for NIO. Just watch for that 449 to continue to hold. One final thing I do want to share with you. So my apologies on not doing some NIO videos. I actually did go to New York for a launch event, and it was pretty amazing actually. So I know a lot of people, including myself, bring up algorithmic trading. Moomoo just launched algorithmic trading, so I'm going to be doing a deeper dive into this. So I really recommend a lot of individuals to kind of, if you don't have a Moomoo account, sign up, because I think algorithmic trading is going to be where investors do make a lot of good money in the foreseeable future, as long as you set it up correctly. And plus, on a side note, Moomoo actually does have a pretty good return on investment type of offer. So if you do open up a new account, deposit only $100, they give you $50 instantly back. So that's a pretty good return on investment if you ask me. So click on the link in the description below and also the comments to take advantage of this promo, having an account, and then that way when I do my algorithmic trading intro video, a lot of you can kind of take advantage of that early on. So definitely I think big things might be coming for that. And stay tuned also, I'm going to be doing a small account challenge. So I know a lot of individuals don't have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest, so I wanted to make a brand new account, small dollar value, and grow it, just so you can kind of follow along, because of course the YouTube title's name is Financial Journey, so I wanted to kind of go through the whole journey of it all. But nonetheless, getting back to NIO, I do feel like there is a lot more upside this upcoming week, and this is also the second time it did bounce off this key pivot point. So like I said, big things might be coming. Let me know your thoughts on NIO. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Hopefully everyone had an amazing weekend. Then one final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals, pop over to my Patreon. I do give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been exactly on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.